Welcome to Let's Make Waves podcast. I'm Rana Al-Basri Mawad, and I believe that we're all here to make waves. I created this podcast to help you unlock your potential by sharing with you tools, resources, and strategies to help you build and grow your business. So if you're looking to build your brand, gain that confidence and knowledge, content and marketing strategies, find your professional voice, attract those raving customers, and create the professional authority for better business opportunities, then you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another edition of my podcast. So honored that you joined me today. I would like to declare the following before I start today's topic. This episode is for all my solopreneurs out there struggling wearing so many hats in their business, and they need to systemize certain details that will add more time to their very busy schedules. This episode is to all my small business owners who don't have the bandwidth to hire full-time content managers and social media managers. This episode is also for anyone who wants to gain a couple of more hours each day to their working schedule so that they can do more things that have big impact into their business and that light their fire, and not worry about posting and publishing and sharing content to keep themselves top of mind with their audience and on being active on all platforms that they need to be active on. I wanted to declare this from the beginning. This episode is for you because just like you, I juggle many hats in my business, and every hour in my day is precious. And because I'm a system kind of girl, I love to find a way to create a system that can especially spare me time on the admin part of my business. And this is something that I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that I struggle with. The admin part, the things that we need to do, it doesn't light our fire, but it's very vital and important for our business. So today's episode is about batching and publishing content regularly on all platforms that I use. This process usually takes me a week maximum at the beginning of the month. You've heard it, 1 week, once a month. And this is usually done the first week of the month, and then I have the rest of the month not to worry about being active online or worried about my social activity and posting regularly. So this is covered, and then I have the rest of the week to work on other parts of my business that need me as much as content needs me, which is my clients, working on new projects and all that good stuff. So I'm going to take you behind the scenes of what I personally do and what tools that I use to plan, create, schedule, and publish content regularly. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Okay, let me start by shedding the light on something that happens with all of us as business owners. So as entrepreneurs, we have to create original content on a weekly basis that best highlights our talent, business offering, expertise, and all that good stuff. So some of us do that with a weekly blog. I do it with a podcast. Some people have an update on their business website or their online store, a video, weekly newsletter, and so many other forms. Then comes our content marketing strategy, where we have to share and be active on selected social media platforms to connect with more and more clients and customers and attract new audience to our business. So for our social presence, we don't only need to publish our original content, but we also need to add and create an extension to our content by doing posts that complement what we do. So just by looking at all of that, it's overwhelming, especially if you're a one-man or a one-woman show, or even if you have a small business with very few members on your team. This is a lot of work, but it is really important work, as important as the rest of the other stuff within our business. So what happens is that at one point, and this happens to all of us, at one point we lose control. It could be a while that we didn't post, and then we suddenly realize that we need to publish something. So we have to come up with it last minute, spend hours to think of something, take a photo, and then, do all of that while the original plan was to work on something else. Or we start with a weekly original content like a podcast or a blog post, and then we might miss a week or two here and there, or we might reach a day one day right before publishing to spend it all on trying to find a topic to talk about, and then we struggle with all of that altogether. So if that happens to you, don't worry, you are not alone. But taking control of content planning, creation, and publishing is important not only for your business in terms of consistency and staying top of mind and relevance, but also for your sanity as a business owner. So here is where advanced content planning, content batching, content scheduling becomes vital for our content strategy. I told you I'm a system kind of girl, and here is my system that I use to keep my sanity and to keep my content flowing uninterrupted during the course of the month. And my system is based on me batch creating and scheduling 5 weeks in advance. So I use 1 week a month to finish 5 weeks of work, which means on the first week of every month, while I work on this system, that week's content is also scheduled and getting published, giving me peace of mind that while I'm working on my content strategy, I don't need to interrupt it to create content for that particular week. Okay? So I hope it makes sense. So by working on 5 weeks in advance, I guarantee 4 weeks of a single month and 1 week of the next month to be covered. Now, I want to point out something. This is what I do, and it works for me, and it saves me tons of time. You can take particular things that works for you and for your business and implement it accordingly. I prefer to work 5 weeks in advance because I want my content to be as relevant as possible. And this is what I do. You can do it 3 weeks or you can do a whole quarter. Take what works for you and leave what doesn't, okay? So first, I start with content ideation, which I usually have ready and planned in advance, like a couple of months in advance. So I talk about this in episode 7. I highly recommend that you go check it out because in episode 7, I take you through how do you plan and create your content calendar a month in advance. I usually do that exercise for 3 months, for the quarter. So listen to that episode first, and then you can come back here and do the rest. And the reason why I say that this is important because coming up with different content ideas and topics is really, really hard if you keep it to the last minute. I have a special list on my phone, and I always access that list and I type down any idea that might come during the course of the month. You can do that with a notebook. You can do it with voice notes. This is very, very helpful. It's been helpful to me because, great ideas come to you randomly. So always make sure that you jot them down immediately before it flies out. Okay, so my content calendar for 5 weeks will usually have the following: 5 podcast topics, which covers a podcast once a week for the next 5 weeks. I also have 5 weekly newsletter topics, which I usually send once a week to my email list, giving them some insight which is exclusive to them for that week. Plus, I tell them about the new episode that was published for that week, and then I invite them to go and listen. I also have 5 podcast audiograms, which are short snippets from the episode that usually I use to get and publish it the same day that the episode goes live on my social platforms to invite my followers to listen to that episode. I also have a total of 15 social media posts, which, to break it down, I usually plan and schedule 3 social media posts for each week. And that's how I got to the 15. So these 3 posts get published on Instagram, where I'm mostly active. I also publish it on Facebook page and LinkedIn. Now, I have one post that is for the inspiration category, if you want to say that. I have one post which is business and brand tip related, and I have one post that is personal with a personal advice or something that I thought of or something that I want to share, like a message to my followers. That's how I come up with 3 posts a week. And I might decide during the course of the month to post something. I mean, yes, some things come up and they're spontaneous and I do them at the spur of the moment. Sure, of course I do that. But this is all taken as an add-on. It's like a cherry on top. If I have a tough, hectic week and I don't have time to do anything on social, I know that I am active because there are 3 social media posts that are scheduled and they're going to be published on, the very hectic weeks. So this is a decent number and I'm very happy with it. On my content calendar, I usually have at least one IG, Instagram live video that I do. I like to have 2 Instagram lives, but the minimum is 1 Instagram live. And usually I have it with a guest that I interview and I chat about a topic that is interesting and of value to my audience. The Instagram live is usually 45 minutes. I prepare for that in my calendar and I jot it down. And now with Clubhouse, I have 1 weekly scheduled room. It's usually on a topic for personal branding or entrepreneurship. It's a 1-hour live. And I think for starting March, it's going to be two rooms a week, each for 1 hour. So that's in the making. Now, other things that could be on my content calendar would be if I have any kind of content that is that I want to create for an event that is happening and that is relevant to my business, to me as a person, or to my audience. So let's say it's Christmas season, it's Women's Week, it's Easter, and all of that. If that month has an event, a global event that is interesting and that I want to share something with my audience, then I also have that on my content calendar. And if I have any kind of promotion running or material that I need to do to promote it or to talk about it, I usually also have that on my content calendar. So it could be a series of emails, a landing page, maybe social posts, and all of that. I also make sure that it's on that content calendar for the month. If I have any ads that I need to run for the month and I need, I use them to support a podcast or to support a promotion, I also make sure that it's on my content calendar. And that's it. That's my content calendar, and that's what I work on for that week. Okay, so now because I have my content calendar for the month already planned in advance, that saves me a lot of time during the first week of the month when I'm working on the actual content. And I completely use that week for content creation, batching, and content scheduling. So I highly encourage you to listen to episode 7 that I've mentioned, which shows you how to create that content calendar a month or a quarter in advance. I'll link it in the show notes. Now, once I have all of that, it's time for the ingredients, which is the actual content. So what I do is that I create content in a batch. And this is one of the most effective ways to content creation and time management for an entrepreneur. Even with a small team, let's say you have a VA or a content manager, this technique is highly effective when you're trying to create content. So the first step that I do is that I spend the first day of that week to do all the research that is necessary for the different topics that I have within my content plan. In my case, because most of my content is based on my professional expertise, my research usually includes checking out new techniques or maybe data that I'd like to include in my post or in my podcast, any supporting information that I want to share. And what I do is that I take one topic at a time, research everything about it, and put all the information in a designated folder that is assigned to that piece of content on my desktop. I also research, for example, for the IGTV Live, I also research my guest. I, take all the information that I need to take about that guest, and I also jot down some notes on a Word document saved in a folder assigned to that piece of content. For social posts, what I do is that I open a Word document and I create a page for every single social post. So if it's the social post, which is brand tips, it's one page for each brand tip social post. Same thing for the inspirational social post, one Word document that has 5 topics on it. And usually I want to share something that is inspiration for my audience. So it could be a statement that I think they should remember, or it's an amazing quote that I heard or read from somebody that I admire, and that adds value and inspiration, and that is also relevant to my business and my audience. All of that in one Word document. And that is day 2, day 1. Day 2 and day 3 is dedicated completely to content creation. Okay, so these days are the days where all of my notifications are switched off. My mobile phone is on silent, and I spend it completely focused on my content creation, because I want to be in that zone, and any interruption can kind of, throw me off. So I've already done my research the day before. All the topics in the calendar are ready for the 5 weeks, and I have them in designated folders on my desktop. So everything is organized, everything is clear, and it's very easy from there to start with the actual content creation. So in my case, for the content for my podcast, I usually write an outline. My podcast episodes are semi-scripted, so I write down everything that I want to make sure that I mention during the recording of that particular episode. Then I write down notes for my Instagram interview live. So these are usually pointers, the questions that I'd like to ask, and any kind of information or points that I want to make sure that I share during the live. So that's for the Instagram live. And then I also do the same for notes for my Clubhouse live. So now Clubhouse is usually not scripted because it's live, but I want to make sure that I have some notes for the topic of discussion and anything that I want to make sure that I want to share with my audience. So that is also done. I also create the content for my weekly emails, which is my newsletter that goes out to my email list. I make sure that I put all the links that need to be, or the buttons that need to be there to take my email list to the podcast or to anything else that I need to share with them for that particular week. And if I have any kind of material that needs images, I make sure that I source them out, I research for them if it's something that I don't personally own, and I make sure that it's attached to the document or inside the folder for that relevant content topic. Okay, now we are day 4 and 5. So day 4 and 5 is completely designated for recording, editing, and creative. So on these 2 days, I do the following. I record all my podcasts one after the other. I do all the editing. So at this point, my podcast is solo. So it's very easy for me to edit because I try my best not to cut a lot into it. I try to record in one go, and sometimes I keep the ums and the ahs because that's real, that's what happens. So the editing doesn't take me a long time. I am planning, and it's in the making already, to have guests featured on my episode. So for these particular podcast episodes, most probably I will use the help of a freelancer for the editing. But for now, the editing is done by me. I also start with all my social media posts. I do the creative part, and I use a great app called Canva. You can have it as an app on your phone or on your laptop. And I use Canva for that, and it has been super, super easy because I already have saved creative designs with my brand colors and my brand font and all of that. And it's very easy to just put things on it, and it makes sure that all of my social posts come out consistent in terms of look and feel and brand and colors. So I will do all of my social posts on Canva, do the creative, download it, and put the final finished image on my desktop in the designated folders. I will put a link to Canva in my show notes, so you can go and check it out. It's a really cool application, and I highly, highly recommend it. I also then start with my audiograms. After recording my podcast, I do my audiograms, and I do an audiogram for every single episode. I use an application called Headliner, For that, it is very easy. It's tech easy, and it doesn't take much time. I usually finish 5 episodes, 30 to 40 minutes on Headliner, which is great. I download the audiograms and also have them in the designated folders. I will also link to Headliner in my show notes if you want to try it out. Okay, so day 6 is the fun part, which is the content scheduling. You have everything done. Everything is in the right folders. It's super easy. Content scheduling usually doesn't take me a long time. It's like half a day max because everything is ready. It's labeled and in their respective folders. So it's a very straightforward job. And for this day, in detail, this is what I do as a final step. For my website, I use WordPress, and I have a plugin on WordPress for my podcast. So I put my podcast on my website, and it's automatically, this plugin automatically links to all of the podcasting platforms that I use, such as Apple, Spotify, and the rest. So I start from there. I upload every single episode of my podcast. I copy some of the notes that I have in my Word doc and add, rewrite some of the things and make sure that the show notes for each episode is done. And then I put any kind of imaging which shows on the website, and it's done. I schedule and I save. That means that once the time comes, the podcast is published on my website as well as on all the podcast platforms. Done. Okay, and then I go to my favorite scheduling app or site. It's called Meet Edgar, and it is truly my favorite because it has amazing features that make my life easy. So on Meet Edgar, I link my website, which is from WordPress, to Meet Edgar. This way, when my podcast is published, as per the schedule, it's published automatically, as I said, on the podcast platforms, plus Meet Edgar also receives the podcast and the show notes. And this is then scheduled and get ready to get published on all of the other platforms that I want to share and announce the new podcast episode. So Meet Edgar also has this amazing feature where it pulls out from the text from the show notes and it gives me variations for the captions. So this way, for the posts that I want to publish more than one time, because it's evergreen content, I can publish them with different captions. So this is amazing because that job is done for me, and the scheduling is done immediately. So what else do I do on Meet Edgar? Yes, so on Meet Edgar, I also upload all the social media content that I have created and prepared, and I also do all the captions for these social media content. Sometimes there are posts that I want with captions suitable for Instagram, so it has a different caption than, for example, LinkedIn. And I do all of that on Meet Edgar and schedule it. I also upload and schedule the audiograms that I want to publish on social media on the same day that the podcast episode gets published. And this way, my social media followers get notified to go and listen to my new podcast episode. Now, Meet Edgar is linked to all of my social media assets. So this way it's covered. Everything is on one platform, and then it gets distributed accordingly for the next 5 weeks on all the platforms that I use and I find relevant in my business. And this is so satisfying, honestly. Trust me, it is. So now for my weekly emails, which is my newsletter that I send to my email list, I use an app called ConvertKit, which is my choice of app when it comes to everything email marketing and list building. And this one too, I cannot recommend it more. So I will link to Meet Edgar and I will link to ConvertKit in my show notes. I highly recommend that you go and check them out. So on ConvertKit, I copy paste all of the emails that is relevant for every single podcast episode, and I schedule them in such a way that they get published and sent to my email list in the afternoon or evening of the day that the podcast episode got published. Okay? Oh, and that's it. But I know it sounds a lot. And I know the information is heavy, but if you think about it, that week, these 5 days, saves me 5 weeks of content, ideation, creation, and scheduling and publishing. 5 weeks. It's really, really powerful. And I want to say something really fast about this. Anyone who knows me, they know that I'm not a tech person. I'm not really good at tech. So what I really like about using the technologies of ConvertKit or MeetEdgar or WordPress and all of that is that it makes me thrive in a way that I can actually feel very satisfied that I've accomplished something that is usually very overwhelming, but everything is done so easy and it's just so smooth. Because MeetEdgar, Canva, ConvertKit, and all of them, they're very easy to use. Anyone can use them easily. If I can, you can. And it is also, they have a lot of great how-to videos and articles and all of that. So there's a lot of step-by-step kind of help formats in it. So it's great to use and I really highly recommend them. Okay, I also want to say something else, that in today's technology, it is amazing that in the sense that it gives us these sites and these tools and these apps that can help us save so much time in time management and productivity. These tools make my content batching, creation, and scheduling so much smoother. And it gives me the peace of mind that I can actually focus on other things and other aspects of my business without dropping the ball on my content publishing and social media consistent presence and posting. I wanted to share with you this behind the scenes kind of episode of what goes in my back end of my work and how it made my life easier in the sense that I do not feel like I am always catching up with my content strategy. But actually on top of it and on top of my social media content efforts and all of that, I know this episode was a bit heavy. I hope you took notes. You can listen to it again and you can save it and come back to it. But what I wanted to give you every single detail so that I can paint for you the true and full picture of what goes in the back end of my business. So I really hope it helps. And it helps you in taking control of your content planning and strategy. All right? And with that, I want to thank you once again for listening to today's episode. As always, I'd love to hear what you think, so feel free to connect with me on social media or on my website. If you haven't subscribed already, I hope you do, and maybe leave a review. I can't wait to touch base with you again this time next week. So till then, have a great week and take care.